Welcome on in, golf fans. It's your boy Gsluke here with our DFS and betting live stream for the Open Championship. Gonna break down everything you guys need to know to go out there, get ready for this major championship for all of your different pieces of exposure. Sorry if it's a little bit darker. I have my ring light off because I've got a really bad migraine. I've been battling it the last few hours. In fact, I didn't know if we were gonna go live, but gonna just go out there, try and battle through it. And hey, the energy levels might not be the same because it feels like somebody is chiseling away at my brain matter with a hammer and a little chisel out there. It literally feels like that. But hey, we're good enough to go out here and go live. So sorry if it's a little bit darker than normal, but yeah, excited to get after it. We got Ryan down there, Sean down there early. Welcome on in. Hopefully you guys are having a solid night. You got Bart, a Bruzy, Metro excited for the week, Jeff as well. Hopefully you guys are having a fantastic Wednesday and are ready to hop on into it. So we're just going to start it off with a look at the weather. This live stream probably going to be a little bit shorter than what I normally do. Sometimes these will go like an hour 15. This time probably like a half an hour, just something around 45 minutes. But in terms of our weather the first few days, I think there's been a lot of hot takes posted throughout the community. You've seen people trying to figure this out the last 3-4 days, myself included, right? I mean, everyone knows that the weather in Scotland can be a massive factor. And in fact, the last time that we were at Royal Troon ended up being the biggest factor of all out there over the first 2 days. If you don't know, the side that Stenson and Phil played about 3 shots easier than what you had for the other wave in 2016. What you saw was a lot of guys like Rory, Jordan Spieth, your top tier players that were in the bad wave that ended up missing the cut that year. So in those that made the cut hardly made it on the number. So while guys like Phil, Martin Keimer, Stenson were like 9-10 under par after the first 2 rounds, the other side of the draw was well over par. In fact, the cut line was 4 strokes over par. So the reason why I mention all of that from last time is that even the smallest of changes could be massive. And another thing to consider about Scottish weather is that it's extremely volatile. It can change at a moment's notice. And if you've been following some of these weather forecasts over the last few days, you've seen exactly that. You've seen a golf course that has gone different sort of weather models over the last few days. So we're going to go ahead and look through all of them here because they kind of vary a little bit depending on each model. So let's start off with this ECM model, which for tomorrow looks nasty the entire day. In the mornings, you've got slightly lower wind gust and slightly lower sustained winds than what we have in the PM hours, but they also have some rain out there in the equation. So for Thursday, I think it's going to play pretty difficult the entire day. It's worth noting that the wind direction that they're getting for Thursday, and same thing for Friday, is going to be the exact opposite of what we had in 2016. So if you saw my course breakdown, you saw other course breakdowns this week, you probably heard about how the front 9 was super easy and that the back 9 is really difficult at this golf course. That's going to kind of be the same thing this year, but the wind direction is the exact opposite. So while the front 9 plays shorter, also has 2 par 5s, normally plays downwind at this golf course, in 2024, it is going to play directly into the wind, at least the first 2 days. And that really rough back 9 that normally is longer, it's got a bunch of par 4s and 3s, also placed directly into the prevailing wind, is actually going to be a little bit downwind for the first few rounds. So compared to 2016, this is going to have a little bit of a different taste, right? That wind direction is going to completely change up the dynamic. And then the fact that you add in that the golf course has gone a little bit longer, I just don't think it's an apples to apples comparison to last time. Another thing to consider on top of that, guys, is that they also added rough to this golf course. They took it from essentially what we saw at the Renaissance last week, which was one of the lowest missed fairway penalties in all the PGA Tour, and ramped it up like crazy. I mean, it looks like a PGA Championship and US Open out there here in 2024. So any sort of weather change is going to be massive. And what you see for Thursdays, I think it's going to be dreadful all day. Those course changes, the fact that the easier side is now playing into the wind, the harder side is still going to play harder, maybe not as brutal, right? Playing in the opposite wind direction. But no matter which way you splice it up on Thursday, you're not going to have solid conditions. I think if anything, if we look through some of the models for Thursday on here, you'll see that the morning wave looks like they're getting a slightly better set of conditions. So if we look at this Meteo Blue model in particular, right, while we have some rain in the morning hours, the wind gusts and the sustained winds are significantly lower. We go to this Icon model, it's much of the same, right? AM wave, maybe getting the slightly better conditions for tomorrow. And then UKV, a lot of the same. So for Thursday, if you were just looking at a single round slate, I think it's going to play pretty flat, all things considered, maybe favoring some of the AM starters. But now, because it's a main slate, right, we've got a whole event that we're looking at here. We can't just look at Thursday, right? We have to consider Friday and all of those players. It's also worth noting that the tee times this week, right, there's no defined waves. So there's no like AM and PM wave this week. Now, the earlier tee time that you have on Thursday, it correlates to a later tee time out there on Friday and vice versa, right? A late tee time Thursday means that you have an earlier tee time on Friday, which means we can try and consider a little bit of a weather edge here. And on Friday, I think we're going to get a much bigger difference. So on Friday morning, we're going to go through some of the models on here. Friday afternoon looks nasty. No matter which model we look at on here, guys, Friday looks like it's going to be an absolute washout. Now, there's not going to be any rain in the forecast, but it's like 30, 35 mile an hour wind gust. So if we go through these on here, you see that this ECM model is calling for slightly better conditions on Friday morning, but no rain, right? All the rain is just before play. GFS model, maybe a little bit of rain towards the very early starters, but in comparison, the first 3-4 hours of play look a lot calmer than what we have in the afternoon. This media blue bottle, even more so, right? No rain Friday morning, and the winds really kick up there in that PM wave. Icon model, much of the same there. And then this UKV model is probably the most extreme out of all of them, where this UKV has it being pretty calm for all of Friday up until you get until about 12 or even 1 p.m. So if I was looking at the weather over the first few days, I think Thursday is going to be pretty close to 50-50. Again, maybe favoring the earlier starters. Friday is where I think we could get that big difference. If Friday morning conditions are as calm as what they're calling for, you could see some -5, some -6 rounds. The Thursday, I think all day, you're going to see players struggling to get to like 6 under. I think first round leader is probably going to be like 4, maybe 5 under par. Whereas Friday morning, I think you might see a ceiling kind of performance, like what you saw from Stenson or Phil Mickelson when they took this golf course to like 8 or even 9 under par. And for PGA DFS, when we're trying to find any edge that we can, I think if there's one sort of thing to kind of, plant your flag in over the first few days is maybe trying to take some of these Friday early starters. If they're going to go out there, they're going to get those nutted conditions. I think that's what I'd rather focus on than trying to go out there and get the perfect type of tee times. So let me actually bring up the Open Championship site. And unfortunately, guys, something that comes along with these migraines that I get is a lot of nausea. So I'm going to try and sip this water and let it pass by. But yeah, it's like I said, it's unpleasant, but we're going to try and get through it for you guys. So let me bring up the site here. I'm going to bring up the tee times. That's why I was kind of tinkering around with this, because I'm going to show you guys who goes out early out there on Friday. Let's catch up on chat real quick so I can try and recover here. So what's going on, Steven? You think it might be a Rory week? Interesting. What's going on, David? What's going on, Red? If you have any questions, by the way, I'm going to hold off on those until we get to the DFS section. What's going on, Kep? You need a haircut? Yeah, I needed one. That's for sure. What's going on, Dave? Yeah, of course. Yeah. I thought about just not doing the live stream. I'll be completely honest, guys. I was like 40% chance of even doing this. And then I talked myself into it. Let's put it that way. I was like, we got to do it. I've done these live streams for like 2.5 years straight. So it'd have been something if I didn't do it, right? I've done it through worse before, if I'm going to be honest. I felt worse and I've done them. So I was like, we'll do it. Fuck it. What's going on, Ross? Getting an eye massager on Prime worked for your migraines. I'll try anything at this point, boss. So I'll definitely look at it. What's going on, Cedric? Can't believe this is the last major. Yeah, dude, I'm not, by the way, guys, you don't have to feel that sorry for me. It's just a really bad headache that makes you feel nauseous. That's all migraine really is. Obviously you have them. People complain about them, but don't feel too bad for me. Trust me, guys. What's going on, Kevin? I know how I feel about Akshay. Yeah, I'll mention that when we get to the DFS section, but he's a lefty, which I think might actually be helpful this week. So we'll talk about that. What's going on, Anthony? All right, we'll get to your questions here in a minute. There are a bunch down there, and I don't want to leave you guys hanging, but let's talk about these tee time things. So I think if there's any advantage, right, it might be these Friday early starters. And I don't think we want to be playing a bunch of slapdicks out here on Friday morning. So even like a Marcel Siem, Ewan Ferguson, who I have a soft spot for, I'm not sure these are the kind of players I'd be looking for. What I'm more so looking for are guys that have a good chance, or I was already looking at over there on Friday. And a few players that maybe stick out. Louis Oosthuizen has an early tee time on Friday. Victor Perez, another one of our value plays, is going off early on Friday. Erasmus Højgaard, maybe worth a potential look. And also Sepp Straka. So if you guys saw my video earlier this week, obviously I didn't know the tee times when I did the damn thing, but Louis, Victor Perez, and Straka were 3 of our value plays. And coincidentally, they get to go out early out there on Friday. So I think that's a little bit of an added bonus that they're going to have some of the better conditions of the week. And they should finish their rounds before the stuff really starts kicking up on Friday. Go down a little bit further, got guys like Denny McCarthy in that wave, a Benny Yan, a Jason Day, all fit that description as well. But even if you want to take some value options, like I know somebody was actually asking about Romain Langasque, he does have an early tee time on Friday. Also CT Pan here, of Richard Mansell after his pretty solid week. So all of these sort of options that are going off early on Friday, I think you're at least in play. Now, do you want to take them as a conviction play, like 15, 20%? Probably not, right? I mean, these guys are lower tier players for the most part. And to top of that, they still have to survive round one. They've still got to survive that carnage that's going to be out there tomorrow. So while I do think that this weather edge could be something, like I said, in 2016, it was certainly a factor. I don't know if it's definitive that you can go out there and stack all of your lineups. So what I'm doing is I'm considering it for some 50-50s. I'm going to have some lineups that are taking like 4 or 5 guys that are going out here on Friday morning. But like I mentioned, they still have to survive Thursday. So it's far from this being, the absolute nutted conditions where like on Thursday, they're getting the better side and on Friday, they're getting the better side. I just don't see that happening. So that's what I've got for it. Let me get a sip of water. This is definitely a struggle bus out here. I have to admit it, guys, but let's get into this DFS stuff. And because I'm not wearing a hat, you guys can see my birthmark on my face, which is a first. Right here, if you see that, that is not a bruise. That is a birthmark, which normally my hat covers up, but not right now. All right, let's catch up on chats, and then what we're gonna do for DFS, because I'm gonna try and keep this a little bit quicker, guys, is we're just gonna go through ownership essentially. So I'm gonna go range by range. I'm gonna point out some of the chalk, which doesn't mean that you have to fade all this chalk, right? But I just more so want to give you guys a sense of where people are building their lineups around. Now, I'll give you my take on some of the chalk as we go, but the idea here is going to be more so from the strategy side. Let's catch my chat and get all that squared away before we talk about this. Hope your week is going great. It is. Super excited for some major championship golf. And yeah, this is the question about Langasque I was talking about. So Langasque, solid form, right? Finished last week extremely well at the Genesis. However, I do think that's going to give him some steam. So down low, it's not like he's chalky by any means, but he's going to be higher owned than he otherwise would be. However, if you're looking for a guy that was hitting the ball well and can try and continue that into this week, then he's your guy. He had like 3 eagles last week out there on the par 5s. Was hitting his long irons particularly well. So yeah, I think he's a decent last man in. I don't know if he's my favorite, but yeah, he's in play. What do I think about daily over 0.5 birdies? Yeah, we're not quite the props yet, but I think it's like a 50-50. I think it's a pretty good coin flip, if I'm going to be honest. What's going on with so many solid 9K guys? What are 1-2 things I'm looking for to go out there and choose my guys? Because you can't play everyone, is what Bart was saying. So yeah, it's kind of hard to choose your guys up top. Part of that's ownership based for me, right? Up top, when you have so many quality players, ownership is a big part of the equation. The other half of that would be course fit, right? Trying to find guys that fit that particular venue. And when the modeling, all of that is equal, a lot of times I just use ownership to go out there and break ties. So great question, especially when you have all those top end options. You've got to have some sort of process for it. And that's partially what I do. Where are we at? Do I think that McNeely is better than Langasque? Probably not. I think I like Langasque a little bit more. Now, neither's my favorite option, but yeah, I think Langasque is solid. Do I think that Louis and Adam Scott could be pivots off of Sanjay? So Scott, I've actually got it like 13% ownership, so I'm not sure if he would be a true pivot. Louis too, right? I've got Louis at like 9-10% ownership. So if you're really trying to get difference, they both are going to have lower ownership than Sanjay, who I have it over 20%. But I don't know if I'd call them like pivot plays, right? Normally a pivot would be like a sub 7%er, and I have both of those over that number. What's going on, Rev? Let's have ourselves a week. Let's catch up on where we're at. The headache is actually okay. It's the more so trying not to throw up. Which, yeah, we're not going to do on live stream. If I have to throw up, I'm just going to run out of the room. So if you see me take off without saying anything, that's what's going on, and I'll be back. Let's put it that way. That's the main thing I'm trying to avoid right now. Thoughts on Manacero staying hot? I wouldn't count on it, as he hasn't had the best year. But if there's the kind of player that can continue it, like Langask was hitting his irons well, same thing with Manicero. So it wasn't like he went out there and he gained like 7-8 strokes putting. So I don't think it's impossible. Thoughts on Answer, Burmester, and Oosthuizen. So if you want my full take on Oosthuizen, check out my DFS preview. I love him this week. Answer, don't love the form, and Burmester, don't love it either. Both have kind of struggled on live. What's going on, Richard? Said Mark, I should say, asking about Richard Mansell. I think he's in play for that, especially with the form, but I wouldn't count on it at a major. He's just too inexperienced for my take, and I probably wouldn't play him. Sam Burns doesn't have the best major history, but his game seems to set up well. I don't know if it sets up well, to be honest, Anthony. I don't know if I agree with that take. He's not the most accurate driver. I worry about that at this golf course, and I don't think he has the short game for this kind of golf course. So, I kind of disagree with you there. What's going on, Mitch? Will Spieth be pretty low owned? Yes. Should he be? Probably, right? Because he's playing pretty shitty golf. He drives it well if he can figure the other shit out. I agree with you on the take with the driver. Driver's been a lot better this year, Mitch. However, this is a huge however, everything else has been horrendous here in 2024. So historically pretty good on a link style golf course, is driving the ball better. So in theory has upside, but he's got to figure out everything else, which even for a big, Spieth guy like myself is a little bit tough. Good thing there's no radiation on the weather forecast. That is true. You wouldn't like that. If you're in Russia, we might have had some radiation there. What's going on? Kim, you said, what wind direction am I seeing for the tough holes? If you go back to the weather, I talk about that a bit, but it's the opposite wind of 2016. PM AM looking even better. Yeah, I agree with you on that. I think the PM AM is the side that I would go towards. What's going on? Sully sounds like 1 of 5 will be. I have no idea what you're saying, Sam. You're going to have to rephrase that. Ginger ale, bitters, and club soda. Yeah, dude, ginger ale, great for nausea. I've been doing that since a kid. My mom has been big on the whole ginger ale as a homemade. I need to order some, though. In fact, maybe I'll Uber Eats some or something like that. You have one entry in, so you're undecided on who to pick. Well, if you have a few choices you need some help with, let me know. But yeah, that's everyone right now, right? What's going on, Darren? Appreciate you powering through, of course. And no one cares about the birthmark. Yeah. Good point. No one does care. But yeah, I wanted to just mention that because someone's like, oh, why do you have like a big bruise in your head? It's not. I've been asked that my whole life. It's like, why do you have a thing above your eye? It's just a birthmark. What's going on, Ryan? Seems like nobody's playing Wyndham. I agree with that. No, not a lot of people are playing Wyndham. He's spraying off the tee, could be a little worrisome. I think that's the issue with people, right? Is he played well on Sunday at the Genesis. However, the off the tee fit is a little bit sketchy. What's going on, Barry? Give Brooks a sneaky look. Oh, more than a sneaky look for me. I bet him outright, and he's a core play. So I'm right there with you, my man. What's going on, Gary? Thoughts on Fleetwood, Rye, and Stenson? Fleetwood's a decent spend up. He fits the golf course, especially like the links golf narrative. Aaron Rye is playing solid golf, has won a Scottish Open, so I think he could probably win at this golf course. And then Stenson's done it before. So I think you've got 3 good course fits there. You're going to have to figure out whether you want to take the ownership because Rye and Fleetwood are pretty chalky. Love the content. Smash a like button. Yeah, you heard him. Yeah, smash the like button, guys. What's going on, Sean? He said favorite 6K player. 6K and below. I'm not going to answer that, Sean. I don't like the questions where it's like, tell me to give me your favorite player. Because I don't even do that for my Patreon subscribers. Like I give people a big player pool and whatnot. I'm not going to build your lineup for you, right? And tell you who your big conviction play is. If you have a few guys you're looking at, I'll help you, but I'm not going to just choose your player pool for you. Sorry, man. Not my type of question. What's going on, Jordan? Going back to Im, who would be a good pivot? Yeah, good point. Yeah, because somebody asked, right, about a pivot off of Sanjay. I'll give you some low-owned guys at the very least. If you're looking for low-owned, Batia's not as highly owned. I mean, even Straka at 6% is not that bad. No one's playing Pavon. No one's playing Justin Rose. No one is playing Jason Day. No one's playing Fox, and no one is playing Siwoo Kim. So these 4 would all be pivots, and then guys like Pavon, Batia, and Straka as well. Now, you're going to have to find the right guy, right? Because I think there's a reason why like these 4 are lower owned. But yeah, those are the quote unquote pivots in that range. Oh boy. What's going on, Deacon? And I'm doing solid other than trying not to throw it. And what are my thoughts on Ben Griffin? Solid form. Honestly, I think he's in play this week. You've been pretty high in Connors, Haddon, and Griffin. You want my thoughts on these three? I'll give you like a rating on the three because I don't know what you're asking, James. Like you say my take, right? Like I don't really know what you're looking for in terms of my take. I think Connors is like a 6 out of 10. He's chalky this week, so I'm not a big Connors fan. Haddon, I'm like a 6.5 out of 10. He's also chalky and expensive, so I'm not the biggest fan there. And then Ben Griffin's at least cheap enough to where, he has some upside for me. So I'm at like a 7 on Griffin. The other two, like 6, maybe 6.5. Sam Bairstow wasn't too far away from the ISCO. Yeah, I noticed that. And you mentioned him last week, Jack. That's right. Good call. By the way, Jack literally called out Sam Bairstow last week and almost won. So good stuff. Sprite, that too. Actually, I think I have a Sprite. I don't think I've tried that for nausea, but good call. What's going on? Big deal. Thank you for the show, of course. Who is the chalk in the 7K? We'll get to that for sure. Luke Grant's harder than Mark Hubbard on a Friday afternoon. Oh my God. Yeah, good comparison though. You made me chuckle. Who else could we say that? Lucas Glover on a Friday afternoon. That guy's grinding out cuts these days. Any thoughts on McKibben and Sharma? I think you're doing a little too much if you're playing those two. Sharma at least hit the ball well last week, right? We know that based on the play that we took Sunday. And McKibben is like 5 times lower owned than the week before. So yeah, I like McKibben this week. If you're going to take him as like a low-owned flyer, did not like him at the Scottish, that's for sure. Yeah, and thank you for understanding about the question stuff. I try to answer what I can, but there's certain questions that they're not my favorite, right? You're on Scotty all week for the outright. What made you come off of them? The outright number. So if you heard my preview, right, I talked about this on the preview. If I bet Scotty, I couldn't bet anyone else, right? So if I bet Scotty at 5-1, well, he would have been the only bet that I got to. Look at all these other ones. Rahm, I bet, right? Colin Morikawa. I ended up getting to a Brooks Koepka outright. I chose to take 3 guys as opposed to 1. So that's all. I still like him. He's still a core play for me, but you bet Scotty, you can't bet anyone else really, at least if you're trying to make any money. Jack says, core sets up for Brian Harman again. It does. I like the lefties this week. Is he being overlooked? Yes, I think so. Do I like any of the flop lags that missed the cut between Southgate, McKibben, Yorker, Juiced? I'd say McKibben, but I don't love any of them, if I'm going to be honest. You hear whiskey's great? Oh, dude, alcohol would be the worst thing right now. It's probably good for a cold, though. Thoughts on Batia? Seems like he enjoys playing in the wind. I like that, and I like the lefties. I guess I'll just say it about the lefties. The lefties, especially the ones that can hit fades. So I guess Harman can hit a fade, but like especially Batia, like he likes hitting fades as a lefty. I like him at this golf course. The wind the first 2 days sets up well for him. Should you risk Seabez with the withdraw? I honestly don't know about the withdraw. I don't know why he withdrew, so I'm not playing him this week. I'll just give you my take on it. I'm not. Who's your favorite 5K golfer? I don't like any of them, if I'm being honest. Thank you, Luke. Not sure if you covered it, but how do I like the Hogard brothers? I like Nico. I'm at like a 6 out of 10 on somebody like a Rasmus. Why can't you quit Spieth? I can't either, Nick. So I mentioned the whole Spieth thing being like a tough play, so on and so forth. I'm still playing them this week, so so I'm right there with you. So why can't you quit them? I don't know. I ask myself the same thing. You're just curious why they were left off my player pool. With who? With Connors, Haddon, and Ben Griffin? Yeah, I can't play everyone, James. Right? And let's not share my player pool in chat. So I'm just gonna delete your comment, man. We're not sharing the behind the scenes paywall content to everyone on the live stream. All right. Lefty, you say? So Bobby Mack going back to back. He could. Maybe he's a little bit too drunk to go out there and do so. He's gonna be hungover. Heard it was a wrist injury. Yeah, that's not great. That makes me really want to stay away from Seabez then. Yeah, Bobby Mack's still drunk. Yeah, exactly. Thoughts on Johnson, Manicero, and Jordan? I actually kind of like Matthew Jordan. He likes himself a link-style golf course. Zach Johnson too, but Zach Johnson is washed up. So I would rank them Jordan, Manicero, Johnson. Yeah, I've mentioned Ben Griffin a few times. I actually like him this week. I can't play everyone, right? I'm playing 31 players this week out of 158. I'm playing like a fifth of the guys, right? So he's just didn't end up getting exposure. What's going on, Mitch? Is Manacero too overowned? I don't think so. I've got him at sub 5%. So I don't have him extremely chalky. So if your worry is the ownership, I probably wouldn't worry about it. Thoughts on Fitzpatrick? Oh, yeah, there's only one in the field. I was going to say which one, but yeah, it's only Matt. I think he's a good course fit, but he's played really poorly in majors. That would be my one concern. Not mentioning Nakajima, but you've had him for a top 20. Okay, that's good to know. Jack last week, like I said, bear style, huge call out there. And yeah, Nakajima is an absolute stud. Any Rory love? A little bit, yeah, a little bit. I think he's a decent driver. I worry about the head case part of it. Another tournament who the lowest salary golfer, around 6K. Thoughts on Neiman? I don't know if he's going under the radar. I've got him at over 10% ownership. And just like some of the other guys, he's been really poor in majors, and it's just hard to look by that. Brendan Todd looks good as well. Yeah, accurate. The issue with Brendan Todd is the distance, because this golf course isn't short by any means. But yeah, if you're going for a pure flyer play, I don't think it's horrible. Can you go back to Hideki, or am I scared? You can go back to Hideki. I'm never scared of the injury stuff. The guy withdraws due to injury, shit. I mean, it's just like a missing the cut, right? And I'm sure all of us play guys every week that go out there and miss the cut. Yeah, I'm not scared about it. Do I prefer Eckroad or Cole? I'm not a fan of either, but if I had to choose between those, I'd go Eckgoat just because he's more accurate. Hovland's been playing poorly. Surely has a low ownership. Yeah, he's low owned. I've got him at about like 10%, which, speaking of, we caught up on the comments. Let's talk through this ownership real quick so we can do this DFS top. So up top, guys, ownership is kind of what you'd expect. You got a chalky Scotty Scheffler, got Rory Xander getting some ownership as well. Where it's a little bit more interesting is this 9K range, where you got guys like Hovland at like 10%. I've got a Cantlay at like 10, 11% ownership. And then your higher owned players would be like a Morikawa. I've got it like 21.1%. A Tommy Fleetwood, who I've got at about 16% ownership. And then a little bit further down here, this 8K range, it's relatively spread out. In fact, of these 8K range players, I think your highest owned out of all of them was like a Tom Kim at like 13.4%. So the way I have ownership here for this week is that it's very top heavy, right? A lot of guys are trying to take as many of these guys from like Morikawa up as they can. Excuse me, guys. Yeah. We're struggling through this. But yeah, towards the top end of the board, guys, a lot of your ownership are on your top end spend ups. So believe it or not, I think that makes there's a little bit of a dead zone in this 8K range, which makes like your chalkiest guys, like a Shane Lowry at like 12%, or like I said, like it's a Tom Kim at like 13% ownership. These sort of plays in this range, I think, are more than viable. So if you start with like one of these guys up top, and then maybe you want to skip the double spend up, I actually really like the idea of like starting a Scotty and then going down with like Shane Lowry as the second man in. Oh, this is getting really hard, guys. We like not to want to throw up, but I'm doing my best. I'm sorry if I have to like take a second. But yeah, like starting up top and then dropping down to the 8K range, I don't think is the worst idea. Just because there's so much ownership towards the top end of the board. And it's not to say that I don't think a double spend up isn't viable. It's just that because of the ownership and because I'm playing in the large field GPPs, I've got to try and find a spot to get different. And for me, a lot of that comes down to your lineup construction. So even if I'm starting like a Scotty Scheffler, it doesn't mean I'm not going to play like a Rahm or a Morikawa as my second man in. It's just that as the week has gone on, I think that there's more of an opportunity to have a slightly more balanced lineup and use that as leverage to the rest of the field. So that's what I'll say about the ownership up top. Let me see. Anyone else that's like overly chalky? Not really. I guess Tony Finau would be another guy who's getting some ownership, but outside of him, not that much. All right, we'll do this quickly. I'm probably going to last another 5 minutes, but I'll try and make it a good 5 minutes, guys. Going down a little bit further, this 7K range, there's not that much chalk other than like a Corey Connors. I've got it like 15%. I've got Aaron Wright like 14%. And then Sahith getting a little bit of steam too. Part of the reason for Sahith would be the form. And then also the fact that he said he loved this golf course. So outside of like these three players, ownership is pretty spread out as well. And in fact, of the guys from like Brian Harman down to my God, I'm not trying to be disgusting, guys. My bad. In this range, there's not that much ownership in this like middle part of the sevens. So like the top end of the sevens has a little bit, it's like a few guys near 10%. This middle range is a little bit overlooked. And then, like I said, these three guys, a little bit chalkier than you'd be hoping. Oh. All right. Whew. I don't know why it got so much worse all of a sudden. Like I said, I'm doing my best. All right, moving down to the 7K range. I've got Straka at like 6%. I've got Louis at like 9.6%. So both of those I think are pretty reasonable. All right, I need a minute, guys. All right. My apologies, guys. I'm sure a bunch of you probably left, but we're back. Puke and rally, as they say. And trust me, you guys don't need to prayer up, but I just was like super sick. All right, we're back. My apologies for that. We'll get back onto it. So where were we at? We'll go through a few questions, then I'll start talking about ownership again, because I guess the ownership was making me too sick to my stomach to talk. All right, where are we at? So we had a question about Wyndham Clark. I think he's in play, at least at an off-a-tee heavy golf course, but I don't know if I'd count on it too much. What do I expect to be the most common star paired with Scotty? I would say Morikawa, if they're going to spend up and they have the salary at 9,900. Maybe somebody like a Fleetwood at 9,300. I think he'll be pretty popular with Scotty too. Great question, by the way. What do I think about Davis Thompson? A solid form. I like the fact that he drives the ball well. Unfortunately, not a lot of links experience, so that would be the issue. Thoughts on Sanjay? Yeah, high ownership, and that's the concern for me. And he doesn't have the best Open Championship success, so that would be it. Which two golfers are so highly owned that you won't even pair them? Probably like a Sanjay, and then let's see the like 8K range. I don't know. Sanjay plus like a super chalky guy up top would be the main issue. Don't overwork myself. Yeah, dude, I'm doing my best here. My apologies, guys. I'm not trying to be like a diva about this, but I went through it like 20 times. So I just didn't want to do that on camera, obviously. Sorry you're late, but you'll watch the rest on replay. Of course, Chris, rather have you late than never. What's going on, Zach? Any love for Benny Ann? I think we've seen the best for this season. However, he does drive the ball well, and he's played decently in like majors this year, so I don't think it's the worst. Yeah, I think you're right about that, Steven. Maybe it was him who made me sick. We're doing better now. Thank you. Yeah, let's hit the like button at least. Hey, I don't usually ask you guys to hit the like button that much. Hit it for this live stream. I'm doing my best up here. Thoughts on Zach Johnson? He played well here last time, and it was 2016, so I guess it wasn't that long ago. Am I okay? Yeah, no. I'm very sick right now. I'm trying to stream through it, but I am extremely, extremely sick. Rumor has it that Scotty wins and you don't play him, you could still finish at the top. It depends, James, right? Yeah, there is a world where he could win and then you not have to have him. That's very rare, though, I would say. Like, that's like a 0.1% type of outcome, but yeah, it's possible. Thank you for doing this, of course. Feel better soon, of course. Someone better call 911. Don't gotta call 911, guys. I told you I'd leave if I had to throw up, right? I just don't want you guys to see. I mean, if you want me to grab a puke thing and do it over to the side, I can, but I don't think anyone wants to see that. Stay off the chalk. Your Jordan game. Yeah. No apologies needed, of course. Thoughts on Cam Smith? Not the best driving course for him. He sprays it a little bit. That'd be the main issue, right? Is that he sprays it. Great links player, though, when he can keep it in play. Thanks for staying. Any Minwoo love? I think he's driving it a lot more accurate this year, so I kind of like that for him, but maybe not my favorite play. I'll be going to bed after. Don't worry. We're gonna get through this. Is there a guy that typically drives it with a high trajectory? Yeah, so like Rory can, but he's been better at like bringing the ball down a little bit. That's a great question. Let me think about it. Aberg, I don't know if he has the knockdown driver. I guess I could be proven wrong. I guess we're going to figure that out this week. Cam Smith has a high ball driver. He doesn't really tend to bring it down that much. And then I guess Hideki Matsuyama too. But yeah, good question. A lot of the guys up top, though, are pretty skilled at bringing the ball down. You tend to like J-Day at opens. He was messing with his irons today, so I don't think that bodes well for his chances this week. I just don't think the form's there. But yeah, he does play well at link-style courses. For Nikolai, Rasmus, or Henley, I'd go Henley there. And then we have a question about Pavon or Akshay. I'd go Akshay. Those would be my favorite out of those two. All right, I'm going to give you guys these last second thoughts, and I got to get out of here. Sorry, guys. I did this as long as I could. All right, let's go down here to the 6K range. First off, Sebastian Soenberg withdrew. But outside of that, there's really no chalk down here. I mean, just going through it, scrolling through it, I think the highest owned players that we have in this range are like 4 or 5%. And it's guys towards the top end of this range. Outside of like an Adam Scott, right, Louis, that are like 10 to maybe 13%. This middle to bottom end of the 6K range is pretty much play whoever you want if you're looking for leverage. Now, do I think they're the best plays? No, right? So that's why I'm not getting as much exposure down here. There are a handful of guys I'm playing down here in the 6K range, but it's only the guys that I think have a legit chance, right? So like Victor Perez, because of his driving, 5K range, I have almost no interest in. These guys down here that are like $5,800 and cheaper, there are one, maybe two guys that I'm even taking in my lineups. Outside of that, that's about as cheap as I'm going. And I think the cheapest guy that I have in my player pool is $5,800. So hopefully it gives you an idea, right, of how far down the board I'd be willing to go. But if you're looking at ownership concerns, really your ownership concerns should probably end around somebody like an Adam Scott or a Louis, right? Like anyone cheaper than those two guys is going to be low owned enough for you. So I wouldn't worry about that all that much. I do want to show you guys at least the stat averages for props. Of course, guys, for all my player pool and stuff, make sure to check out the Patreon page. But yeah, we're not going to be able to do a prop section here. I apologize, guys. It's just I'm physically not able to. But let's go through the stat averages, at least for Royal Troon. And I guess if it's not a consolation, we wouldn't have had a slip anyways for Prize Picks or Underdog, because I really have the pricing. All the value, all the slips that I have for round one, I took on Monday when there was a lot more value to be had. But the stat average is from 2016, which is the last time they played this golf course. It played pretty difficult, right? A hole 2 over par. Birdie average was like 2.67. Bogey average was about 4 per round. And I think that the boards we have right now, this is the important part of doing this for props. I think they're accounting for these averages. Now, tomorrow, if you're waking up early, you're watching the golf in the morning, going over here in Data Golf, right? And clicking the live model, whatever the case may be. So just to show you what that looks like, right? Click live model. And you take a look at like the scoring average. If you click on this and the scoring average is like just hardly over par, well, maybe you take a bunch of unders on strokes. You come over here, you see it's playing like 2.5, 3 strokes over par. Then probably you want to make some fades over here on Prize Picks and Underdog. Anytime we have a course that we haven't seen for like 8 years, anytime we have a weather situation like what we can get here at the Scottish or the Open Championship like we have this week, you got to account for it. It's going to have wide variations in your scoring, and that's why I'm being a little bit hesitant about it. So that's all I've got, guys. I'm going to go ahead and hop on out of here. Like I said, try to do this as long as I possibly could, but we should be good for rounds 2 through 4. These migraines usually only last like 12 to 24 hours for me, so we should be fingers crossed, like 90%, should be 100% out there for tomorrow. So keep an eye on my X/Twitter for all the information. Patreon page is where you can find all my prop slips, all my analysis for this week, and best of luck with all of your stuff this week, guys.